Колбас колбасит соло, колбасер по пояс голый.
So, greetings comrades and welcome to a vehicle that the Russians seriously thought about making, the Object 490. It is, well, I'm gonna say it right off the bat, it is not overpowered unlike some people, some influential people are saying. While it has incredibly strong armor, excellent reverse, and very good speed, and a big gun, it however has extremely poor side armor. Most of its side is basically an ammo rack. It has a slow firing gun, extremely low DPM, and the whole traverse is bad, as well as the fact the elevation, depression, and overall traverse of the turret in itself is completely an atrocity. So first of all, it comes with a 152mm gun dealing 1050 average damage and 850 pen. For all intents and purposes, it is the same as the Marta 152. The tank, without Alicia, has an incredibly low number of hit points at 3,200. It is the lightest in terms of hit points MBT in its tier, and that is not good at all considering the fact this is basically a tank destroyer. It has 4 tracks, which means that while it does have some suspension durability and it can move with a track on one side being destroyed, this will happen so often that your mobility will be reduced really badly, and in many cases I prefer it if the track was taken out. So let's compare it to other dirt guns of the same tier. Dirt guns being guns that are 130mm and above, and no, I did not want to do that. So as you can see with all of the other dirt guns in tier 10, the Object 490 has the lowest DPM by a significant margin. It also has, while it has a big gun in comparison with the Armada 152 and excellent penetration, it has the longest reload time out of all of them at 12 seconds. As well as the fact it also has an incredibly low number of hit points. It does have good camouflage however, and with Erin you can get it up to 38% more while stationary. The view range on the move is atrocious at 400 meters, and its elevation and depression angles are basically shit. It has the longest minimum spread, the longest aim time, the longest turret traverse, and this is where this thing starts to really fall. Now there are just about all of the other tier 10s in the straight fight can win a game with the Object 490. Tier 10 MBTs that is. And I'm going to show you why. Now starting off, a lot of people have pointed out that the armor on the 490 is very strong. It is 800mm thick. However, the standard penetration of a tier 10 is 800mm, which means they'll go through you 80% of the time. However, due to this thing's shockingly poor traverse speeds, as well as the fact the turret traverse is poor, most of the time an enemy MBT, all they have to do is get past you. And ones that can penetrate the upper hull, the lower hull, will absolutely butter you in a fight. Which means, generally speaking, this is not an MBT you can expect to take into a direct fight with another one and expect to win, despite this being labelled as what is essentially a tank destroyer, and even with Cortez it's not going to help. Its low number of hit points, relatively crap flexibility, and the inability to deal with targets at close range makes this a very, very poor vehicle to use. Now it does have some strengths however. For the most part it is basically invulnerable to missiles. As you can see here, the AFT-10 with the highest missile penetration in game only has roughly a 36% chance to pen it, which is good, and it does have relatively good side scraping angles versus missiles as well. However, once you get round to the side, ammo rack, ammo rack, ammo rack, ammo rack, ammo rack, literally everywhere. And well, you can see how that's going to go. So despite what everybody says, in all honesty, this is a very, very vulnerable vehicle. Now, I've chosen to go with a mean retrofit. It will boost the acceleration to the point of which you're always running around with a 2600 horsepower engine. That's aircraft levels of horsepower, by the way, with Alicia. So with Alicia's build, I have a max speed of 95.2 kilometers an hour, a 0 to 32 of what is essentially 2 seconds, and a lot of... I can basically do a lot of damage in this if I ram somebody. In terms of commander choices, there's only a couple you can really take. Alicia is one of them if you really want. Obviously Cortez is going to be the best choice as you're able to max your damage, but the commanders I found to be the best choice for this personally has actually been Fatal or Maximilian Koenig. It gives you excellent repair speed, which will help you with your tracks, which they will get damaged a lot. Gives you better turret traverse speed. Most importantly, helps you with your aim speed, giving you a 15% boost. And of course, everything else really. Driver wise, I recommend getting acceleration off off-road terrain and track and wheel repair speed, as everything usually doesn't go well. And apart from that, spare parts crates, synthetic oil, fire extinguisher and PV field rebuild kit. I do notice this thing gets set on fire a lot, so you definitely want to take that. And lastly, for retrofits, in terms of a flexibility build, I recommend the gun breech, Pioneer toolkit, air induction pre-cleaner and improved filter systems. Now, if you seriously want, you can take commanders such as Vincent, Victor, Rachel for the reload, Philip for the repair speed, but overall speaking, I only recommend Fedor, Alicia and Cortez. This is a very difficult time to play, I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to show you a PvP game where you can understand where everything goes wrong, and a global ops game in which things went absolutely meme. So let's have a look at that PvP game first, and then we'll go straight for the memes. So the question is, why did I say that Rachel Kramer is not really recommended when this is a vehicle with a slow reload and sucks in close quarters? Why would I not take a commander that gives more reload to help me in close quarters? Now, the reason why is because this thing actually sucks that much in close quarters that even if you get it down to 11-10 seconds, it's still not going to help. You'll go from 5 RPM to 6 RPM at best, which is nice and all, but even then, the whole traverse and the gun flexibility is, generally speaking, terrible enough to the point of which you can't really do anything. Now, unfortunately the sniper view isn't working this game, but as you can see here, the gun only really has a narrow amount of angles you can work with until you can no longer aim properly. Now, granted, this is a very good hold down vehicle, it has a very tough amount of armor, but that's all it's really capable of. It's actually quite difficult to get good games with the 490 because of how inflexible it is. Now, 1000 damage every couple of seconds is nice, but remember that the clerk over there could actually kill me if we get into a fight, and in fact he could probably kill me even now, even though I've taken off a good chunk of his hit points. Now, fortunately, this thing does have extremely strong armor versus Wilkes. This thing literally has spaced armor everywhere, and for the most part it is the most armored vehicle in game. It's ridiculous, but its only strength is its armor frontally, and once you get past that, it really doesn't have anything else that can help it. And generally speaking, I haven't really seen an Object 490 have a good game. A legendary tier game which is like 8,000, 9,000 damage in PvP, even though the gun itself does 1,000 damage. And I'm starting to understand why. Okay, crab over there. This does have an excellent reverse speed, by the way. I'm doing 60 right now. It's amusing. It has all of these little meme qualities sprinkled in, and don't get me wrong, this is a very fun meme machine. To get 100% ramming damage of Alicia, get a 33% acceleration boost is hilarious to ram things. Even tier 10s, even the heaviest vehicles in game like the X1A3, you can smack them for 1.2k damage with this, which you can't do with anything else besides the M1A1 Storm. But it's still not good enough to really be on the level that, say, a Leopard 2AX or a T14 or an XM1A3 is, which I rate as being the best tier 10 tanks right now. I'm unsure about the Leclerc tier 4, since I have a strong feeling that it's more of a placeholder model than anything. So it's probably going to get fixed in the near future. But at the very least, it's fun, but it's not a serious vehicle. And overpowered, that's a big no. At the very least, as a peekaboo, this thing works very well. Trading shots of enemies is always good when you can get a hit on them, but once they start to hit you back consistently, you are very much dead. On its own, this very much falls into the same trap that the T14-152 does, and the fact that it functions on its own very poorly. If you have no support, you're going to die in, like, say, an X01 or a T14 or a Lepatili X or even a Macava or a Chally. It is fun to do 1k damage to people though, but it very much feels like one of those tier 9 TDs in World of Tanks, or even a tier 8 one. Sure, you have a big gun and you're very scary to people frontally, but once people stop being so scared of you, well, it basically feels like a spider with a gun. The fear factor isn't going to be enough. And that Leclerc over there, and in fact a T92MS and an object can actually hit you twice for every shot you put out. Even more if they get the first hit off. And as you can see by the angle of the gun over there, your traverse speed ain't that great. And we're going to see this thing absolutely fail in close combat in a second. And as you can see by those tracks over there, I actually have a track that's out. Pretty fun little thing there, but once one of your tracks are red, your you can actually move with a track destroyer since it has 4, but once one of them go out, you basically lose your whole traverse goes down to what is very little. So it's not great, in all honesty. Hi Leclerc. And now my support's going to be withdrawn very quickly, so there's a Buford over there. Oh shit, hi Buford. And I did in fact shoot that Buford over there, but this thing can get flanked very easily, and well, I'm basically dead. And that's very much how your average 490 games go. You get surrounded by 1 or 2 players and you can't do anything. So, let's have a look at that. So this is where things are going to absolutely kick off. I have 33% hull acceleration. I want you to watch this. Because right now this is the fastest MBT in game, and there's a lot of fun you can get with this. Accelerating uphill. Okay. I'll accelerate uphill. Well, actually, the Alte might be the better accelerating tank, but this goes past 55. So far, I've managed to get this thing to reach 95. And I've managed to do a hell of a lot of ramming damage with this, as you saw in the introduction of that Macava. That was incredibly amusing. So, obviously, Glops is probably the best way to play this, as you're not limited. See, 90. Bouncing all over the place. And you can get to caps faster than everybody else, which is a good thing, I guess. The flags were here for the memes, by the way. And it also means that you can make armadas literally shit themselves. Hey, how's it going? He's not gonna have a fun game because now he's resorting to firing heat sheet at that guy. But like I said, the ammo rack, the crew in the back, ow. And unfortunately, I had to take off the first aid kit for everything, as this thing will get set on fire and you need the repair kit as well. But for the most part, I haven't really found the crew damage to be that excessive. In fact, this is actually one of the few times I've had a crew kill, well, a dead crewman in the Object 490 in about 10 games in Glops, which is actually quite rare. The gun itself is relatively serviceable. The reason why I'm failing against this X123 is because of me, not because of the gun. So it's serviceable, it does what it says on the tin, it's nothing special. 825 pen is, or was it 840? Is relatively okay. You'll get through things. and at the very least we should be able to kill them pretty quickly. 991 damage. Remember, this is a dirt gun, so it can vary between anywhere from 900 to like 11 to 1.1k, and unfortunately the enemy does seem to use that pissing stupid retard commander, to be honest. Yeah, fuck you, X1. But I really don't like that commander, simply because, I mean, there's so many better commanders you can take. I mean, Wilts and stuff are taking that commander. Like, why? But anyway, this is a very strong hold down vehicle. Once it gets hold down, it's basically invulnerable to damage unless, say, it's from a top down attack missile, which the Javelin can actually pen it. I guess it's nice hold down, but so is a 2AX, so is a Leclerc, so is a lot of vehicles, so is a T14. There's nothing really special about that, and I'm still running on a dead track here. You will actually forget you have dead tracks most of the time. Unfortunately for me, having the track repair time, as you can see here, it's now at roughly 4.92 seconds, which is pretty much faster than every normal MBT gun in the game, so that's pretty decent, I guess. However, I'm now going to get penned by things, and this is when it's not going to go well at all. The clerk over there, I bounce, unfortunately, ERA package, and that's where... Okay, so that happens. I mean, 5,000 damage. I mean, most of the time I've had games where I've done completely negative, and it can be difficult to get real damage with this, to be honest. But anyway, I don't really think you should take playing this tank seriously at all. But we're here for the ramming damage, so might as well get some in, and trust me, you will see a lot of ramming damage now. Well, at some point. Hey Leclerc, how's it going? Now, the Leclerc at the moment, as well as the 2AX and the X123, and I think the T14 can absolutely butcher this thing, simply because of its incredible lack of DPM. You can see the turret reverse not going particularly well there. Hi, Wilk. Which means going into fights with anything with, I'm going to say 6,000 or more DPM can basically ruin you very well. Now, as I said, that Wilk should be dead. He isn't, because he gets the stupid thing. And generally speaking, I feel like this would be a much more fun tank if it had the, screw you, Wilk, if it had the 125. Generally speaking, I do feel like this should have been armored with the 125, so it gets, you know, better DPM and everything. The only real problem with the 490 is its basic immunity to tier 9s and tier 8s frontally, and even some tier 10s. Now, obviously, as I said before, that's basically its only strength. So if you remove that lower plate armor, what's it got? Basically nothing. So in fact, I would actually like to see this replaced with the gun stats of a 125, by the way, ramming damage! Hilarious. And basically a lower plate nerf would be fine, because then it would have the ability to trade shots with people. So increased DPM, lower armor, that would be okay, and maybe giving it some more hit points as well, because 1.2 for a 56-ton vehicle, the Black Eagle and Yamada have much more. So in fact I may keep running this build simply because the massive amount of acceleration and stuff you have is beyond hilarious. Also, hi Wilk, how are you? And as you can see over there, the Wilk basically got saved from being killed because... But, unfortunately, the whole thing with the Amarak... Yeah. When you play Glops, you will die a lot in the 490. I'm not going to say because bad things do happen a lot. But at the very least, this is a fast tank, so in Glops it is relatively useful, simply because you can speed away and get to things pretty quickly. Now there's a clerk over there. unfortunately I bounce. And this is when the face hugging potential of the 490 comes into account, because that guy can't actually pen me right now. So generally speaking, the best things to do is not to back away from this thing, it's to try and outmaneuver it. So as you can see, that T4 right now is actually backing off, and what he should be doing is pushing forward. And obviously once he starts pushing forward, well, I can't do anything to him, can I? So the advice for this is don't be afraid of a 490. Sure, it has a big gun, so does the Challenger, so has an XL1A3, so has a 99-140, so has a lot of vehicles in Armored Warfare, so has an MBT-70, so has a Sheridan, so has a Starship. That doesn't mean you should run away from them. The long reload time, the poor hold traverse, and the bad HP means that even if you're in a tier 8, you can outmaneuver it, and once you get to this thing's side, it can't push you off. And in fact, it might not even be able to aim at your engine deck. So take it from me, someone who's played this thing quite a few times. Don't be afraid of it. Push it. Make the driver panic. Because once you get to the side of this thing, you've ammo racked it. Sure, he uses his repair kit. Ammo rack it again. Also, screw that stupid commander, by the way. There's a level of hate I have for people in Terminator platoons who use it. So let's have a look at this with sniper view, since it seems to be working this time. So you can see how large the aiming circle is. Obviously that T4 should be dead. I don't understand why that guy isn't using Cortez or Victor or somebody. To shoot that K21 really badly. Okay, well, screw you, Leclerc. Okay, so now I've got to deal with this K21, and as you can see here, this isn't me actually pointing the gun up, this is me trying to get it on target. And there's a lot of awkwardness with this. Unfortunately, I miss on the K21. Okay, now I'm stuck. As you can see here, this isn't me slowly moving the mouse, this is its actual actual turret traverse. Which is, isn't great, as said in the review. But at the very least, this thing picks up speed, and it picks up speed really well. So, it's a mixed bag of feelings, but overall, I wouldn't rate this as good as, say, the Alte was in the last Battle Path. Like the Ontos, this is very much a meme tank, and while the BWP may have quite a bit of utility, I don't really think this is going to be used by top tier clans, in all honesty. Also, hi Cornet. And at the very least, a vulnerability to missiles such as the Cornet and the T-15 would be okay, but this is supposed to be a very heavily armoured tank, so I guess a slight 10 to 15% nerf to make it vulnerable to TDs, but not that much vulnerable to the point where they can blap it with submission. It's going to be a delicate balancing act with this, and well, while you can bounce a ridiculous amount of damage with it, you don't have the damage sponging ability of, say, a Macabre or a Challenger does. They can take a lot of damage and still keep going. This can't. This is a fragile vehicle, really. Fragile internals, fragile hit points, fragile engine, fragile ammo rack, fragile crew. Especially if they shoot you from the back, and I shudder to think what happens when a Wilk with Zatsief or Sabrina gets near you. Speaking of wheeled vehicles tend to run away from this thing quite a bit, when in fact they should be pushing into it. Say, Wilk will be able to outmaneuver this thing really quickly, and once a Wilk gets just shot in the side armor, it's gonna die. Note to self, I'm not using the Alicia build for the missile, I'm using it simply for the acceleration. I wouldn't care regardless of what happens. So that's the thing. And that's pretty much how this game goes, so let's have a look at the post-game stats of those games and see how they went. So in total I did 5,106 damage for that PvP game. Only 130 battle corners, with the majority of damage being on that Leclerc. Now, that's not bad I guess, but if I was saying the Marder 152 would have gone a lot better. Now a lot of damage was bounced, 9,000 in fact, but remember a lot of that was simply shots that would never have penned in the first place, and I do see that from people a lot. in which they're never able, in which they know they won't pen the object, but they just have to shoot it for whatever reason. The Roughneck game was actually really good, and that's probably the best game I've ever had in the 490. Was that because of the ramming damage, or was it because the other team was stupid? I don't know, but more than half of the damage was done on that poor XM183. Now, I do the most damage in the game, well, second most damage in the game, which is actually humorous considering the low DPM of this thing when compared to others. But, and in fact a lot of damage was bounced as well, 27,000 to be exact. But how much of that damage was shots that would never pan, I don't know. And that's where this thing can get muddled. So, is this overpowered as everybody says it is? No. It isn't. It's quite weak, in all honesty, and while it's a fun meme tank, that's all it is. The next vehicle, however, will be a lot more different, and that's going to be the Leclerc Tier 4, which will be due in on Wednesday, and I will be in the States on Wednesday, so hey, this is the last review that will be uploaded, well, that will be published when I'm still in the UK. That's the thing. Hope you enjoyed this little tidbit of information, guys, and I guess I'll see you all for tonight's stream. Obviously a stream on Monday, and well, after that I'll be gone to the US to spend time with my lovely fiance and later wife, I guess. So for now, take care everyone. I hope you enjoyed this meme machine, and I'll see you all next time.